Have you ever wondered how Death Valley earned its name? Perhaps it's from the mysterious fumes that allegedly killed many miners. I traveled to Southern California to investigate. On the way, I came across an old ghost town, and then I camped out in Joshua Tree National Park and made some pizza. Doesn't that look good? Next time on Lost Legends of the West. His name was Peg Leg Smith. Smith was a prospector in every sense of the word. He would go to some of the most hellish regions on the face of the earth in pursuit of one thing: gold. Smith knew a young prospector who understood the harsh Southern California land better than anyone. The young prospector told Smith of a place his father had found where gold nuggets were camouflaged with black soot. While these nuggets were plentiful, they were surrounded by horrible fumes that would cause confusion and eventually death to anyone who approached. The young prospector warned him not to go there under any circumstances. Turn back if you see tall stone cones. They surround the crater and warn you to stop. Peg Leg Smith ignored the advice and went in search of the black nuggets. Soon, he stood at the base of an enormous volcanic crater. The ground surrounding the crater was littered with black rocks, black rubbed away, revealing solid gold. Among the treasure, human remains. As he contemplated what to do, he found it hard to breathe. The fumes were so horrible, Peg Leg Smith was barely able to drag himself away from the volcanic crater. With each breath, it became more and more difficult for him to survive. As he crawled away, he wished he had listened to the young prospector. Years later, two prospectors were searching for gold. Soon, they were walking among black rocks and the black fumes of death.
I'm Joanna, Skye, and in the next half hour, we will attempt to track down as many clues as possible leading up to the disappearance of the black gold. So stay tuned as I go looking for Peg Leg Smith's black gold of death in this week's Lost Legends of the West.
Every legend has some truth. Every truth has some legend. We find the truth in the legend.
Hi, I'm Joanna Skye. I'm standing outside the library here in Indio, California, which is just a few miles down the road from Palm Springs. Here I learned of the infamous Peg Leg Smith and his black gold of death. I researched two different accounts of this legend, one written by John D. Mitchell in his book, Lost Mines of the Great Southwest, and the other by Leland Lovelace. Both stories tell of a volcanic crater filled with gold. Now, anyone that's gone in search of this treasure, with the exception of 2 people, have died. They were reportedly killed by mysterious fumes that are supposedly volcanic. Additionally, Lovelace believes the crater to be somewhere between Amboy and Virginia Dale and the towns of Barstow and Indio, which is a good thing because in Mitchell's book, he believes the crater to be somewhere northeast of Indio. So in the next half hour, we're going to head northeast and hopefully find the towns of Amboy and Virginia Dale, talk to some of the locals, then head out and find some stone cones and hopefully the crater, and with a little luck, find the gold.
My first goal was to find Virginia Dale. Virginia Dale is not on any map, but by studying some old mining charts, I had a pretty good idea of the town's location. To get there, I had to drive through Joshua Tree National Park. There were Joshua trees everywhere, and in some cases, they were triple the height of the car. Well, paved road turned into dirt road. And dirt road turned into no road. Then I found the ghost town. Virginia Dale must have been a happening town back in the day because the mines were so large. I decided to look around a bit. Lovelace's account of the legend places the crater near this ghost town. Maybe this building was a store that Peg Leg Smith stopped in to buy supplies on his journey. Or this building may have been a brothel since there's a couple of old box springs and some plates lying around.
So this is the town of Virginia Dale. Obviously no one's here to interview since nobody's been here for over 100 years, but let's go take a look anyway. I think this was the office, since it's the most sturdy building still standing. You can still see the windows are pretty much intact. Even on this window over here, there's a little lizard sunbathing. And what's really incredible is that the frame to the roof is still there. And so now that we found the town, let's go see if we can find the mine shaft. And since there's no one here to talk to, tomorrow let's head out to Amboy and hopefully we can find somebody there who can help us locate the crater.
On my drive back to civilization to set up camp, I spotted the original Virginia Dale mine. No wonder I did not see it on the way in. It's located a mile away from the town and is camouflaged into the side of a mountain. I had about an hour before sunset. Of course, with the time, I was going to explore the mine.
Let's see how far in we can go. Let's see if we can find any gold. Oh, we can't go any further, only like 6 feet. But at least we found the Virginia Dale mine shaft, which means we're in the right direction for the crater. And since the sun's setting, I'm going to go set up camp and make some dinner.
Time flies when you're having fun, and it did. leaving me only enough time to set up camp before the sun would go down. I made the decision to set up camp next to the mine with the little sunlight I had left. It was difficult to pull myself away from the beautiful sunset, but the thought of setting up camp in complete darkness was enough to motivate me to get moving.
Hi, I just got done setting up camp and now it's time to make some dinner. Tonight, I decided to have some pizza, which I know sounds difficult, but it's not when you have a Dutch oven. Dutch oven's one of the original ovens that they used back in the day, and it just gets set right in the fire and cooks whatever you like. So first we're going to start off and make the crust. So I take the pizza crust mix and add it to some hot water. So I'm going to go ahead and add that on in, and we're going to mix that on up. It takes about 25 strokes at least till it gets nice and thick. Give me a minute. Once you've mixed pizza dough, you want to cover it and let it sit for about 5 minutes. Give it a chance to rise. Next, what we're going to do while the dough is rising, we're going to go ahead and grease the bottom of the Dutch oven. And you can use oil, but I'm going to go ahead and use margarine for this. So we just take a little bit of the margarine and grease the pan. And this is so that the pizza doesn't stick to the oven. Not that the pizza is going to be that high or anything. Right now what I'm doing is kneading the dough to get it nice and full before I go ahead and set it on into the oven. Oh, looks pretty good. So let's put it in our oven in a nice pizza form. We're going to smooth it out. Oh, that looks good. So next comes the sauce. So I'm going to take my sauce and just kind of add it on. And take a little knife and smooth it out. After sauce comes the cheese, and I love lots and lots of cheese. I'm going to put some of that on. Love cheese, so this is going to be pizza with extra cheese. Put some of that on, and a little bit more on that on. And toppings wise, we have pepperonis. Seems to be the favorite choice of the crew tonight, so some pepperoni. There! My pizza's all ready to go, so now I'm just gonna put the lid on and take it on over to the fire. When carrying a Dutch oven, be very careful. They weigh about 30 pounds, unless I have gold in my pizza. So put it in very gently, and then you need to cover it up with some of the hot ashes. This way it distributes the heat evenly. And you just need to let it cook for about 15 to 20 minutes, and then you'll have some pizza.
Once the Dutch oven was in the fire, it took about 20 minutes for the hot coals to cook the pizza.
I just carefully removed the oven from the fire, so now it's time to remove the lid and see what our pizza looks like. Very gently, very hot, and wow, looks great.
That night, the wind increased to 40 miles an hour, creating a gigantic windstorm. It felt like someone was throwing rocks at my tent. The only thing keeping the tent grounded was my body. Not surprisingly, I was awake, broke camp, and was on the road before the sun rose. At least this way, I had an early start to Barstow, a town rich in history.
town of Barstow became known on the map as one of the great places to stop along the famous Route 66. But before then, many people got here by railroad, and it was the railroad industry that kept this town booming. Today, it's the military base located right down the road that keeps many jobs stable here in the town of Barstow. This is Barstow Centennial Park, built in 1990, dedicated to the miners who moved out to the Old West in search of gold. As you can see, the park is filled with all sorts of relics from this time period. They used to mine not only gold, but all sorts of minerals which would become extremely valuable to the town of Barstow.
I talked with a few local residents who told me of their own adventures with the wind.
When we first came, it used to be trailers. Every time you come down the mountain, it'd be at least one trailer turned over. I mean, they are really wind. In fact, we've had a tent out there to be staked down, and the wind just tore the stakes and broke it.
They also knew of black volcanic craters.
Yes, when that thing was explode, I guess it must have spurted that lava. They claim it's 20 miles, as much as 20 miles. And you can see the lava long before you get to the crater itself. Long before. It has spread out all over out here in the desert.
Oh, we've been up to Amboy, and we went up to Pisgah. Pisgah is the nearest volcano to us, but it's on private property and you can no longer go there. But when we first came, you could go up there. But they mined something from it, and the mining company took it over and they fenced it off, and they have security guards, so you can't go up there anymore. But that was an interesting volcano. But the next one is Amboy. Oh, there you can see for miles and miles around it. It must have been a tremendous explosion. It must prehistoric times, I'm sure. But it's lava all over. You can't see anything for miles but lava.
The last town I needed to find from the legend was Amboy, California. On my way to Amboy, I was surrounded by craters. And then another surprise. Outside of Amboy were cones, just like those described in the legend, which means I'm close to the crater. I later found out that these cones were actually salt cones. The small town of Amboy looked really familiar to me. There was a reason for this. It has been used by Hollywood in countless movies and television shows. The lone hotel, cafe, and gas station provide for the perfect backdrop. After leaving Amboy, I could see the crater. As if driving wasn't difficult enough, climbing the crater was even harder. The heat was almost unbearable, which is not surprising. In the distance is Death Valley. After the climb up the crater, I was finally inside. As I had hoped, I was surrounded by black volcanic rocks. I pulled out my metal detector and started searching for rocks of gold. In order to be most effective when using the metal detector, I walk slowly and move the detector from side to side so that I can cover the most ground. A metal detector is just that. It detects metal. And since the lava has a high iron ore content, finding gold here is as easy as finding it in your backyard.
Well, I made it to the top of the crater, and as you can see, there's no gold behind me. And the metal detector didn't pick up any gold as well, but that doesn't mean that there's not some crater out there filled with some legendary gold. We managed to cover from Barstow to Indio to Amboy and Virginia Dale, saw a lot of stone cones and a couple other craters, so one of them may be the one waiting for you to find it. But remember, if you do go in search of this treasure, many men have spent lifetimes just seconds away from being rich. So in the words of Henry Van Dyke, the goal of his journey may be won. He may rest, but he is never idle. 1,000 years may pass like a day in glad surprise of paradise, where work may be sweeter than play. Until next time, I'm Joanna Skye, and this has been Lost Legends of the West.